Men, it's with a great deal of pleasure that I have an opportunity to officially welcome you to B-43, the company where you're going to be taking your 8 weeks of basic combat training. A winner never quits, and a quitter never wins.
Like almost every man in the company, he was drafted.
On your feet! Okay, let's go, everybody up! Get up, get up, get up! Let's go, get up. When those lights come on, your feet hit the floor.
Week 1, day 6, 0500 hours, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Let's go. All right, hey! Move on! Go.
The overhead ladder is one event of the physical combat proficiency test. Minimum requirement, 36 rungs in 60 seconds. It's 20 yards out and 20 yards back, and 36 seconds to do it. The mile run ends the test series. It foreshadows what the next 7 weeks will demand. For some, the run proves their ability to endure. For others, it underscores their need. For Tom Bright, it ends his brief career as temporary sergeant. Week 1 is over.
Upon arrival, the recruits are taken directly to the recruit receiving barracks, where they undergo their initial processing. They receive their first Marine Corps haircut. Upon arrival, some have long hair, while others have curly locks. When they get out of the chair, however, they will have very little hair left, and they will have a uniform military appearance, which will help establish equality in the platoon. After a recruit platoon has been formed, they are turned over to their drill instructors, who will train them for duty with the world's finest military organization. A team of 3 of the best non-commissioned officers in the Marine Corps is assigned to each platoon. They have the job of molding these raw recruits into United States Marines. At least one of these non-commissioned officers will be with the platoon 24 hours a day for 9 consecutive weeks.
Get your heels together! Stand up! Get them together! On their throws, they look like they wiggle in the knees! Get them straight!
Reveille for the recruits goes at 4:55 a.m. The private finds out that there is only one way of doing something, the right way. Physical training is also stressed here at Parris Island. Many hours are devoted to reconstruction of 19 years of improperly toned muscles, which must be conditioned in 9 short weeks. This program is conducted by both the physical training instructor and the drill instructor. The Marine Corps Obstacle Course provides an excellent physical conditioning device. The course consists of a series of unique obstacles which develop strength and coordination. The first time a recruit runs the course, he finds it is a challenging, near impossible feat. However, after weeks of intensive conditioning, he is able to negotiate the obstacles with little difficulty. At 9 o'clock each night, the recruits are ready for a full night of sleep. They have been given little time to think of anything but the Marine Corps. This is exactly what we want. We keep them so busy that they have little chance to become homesick. The drill instructors will tell you, our job is done with this platoon, soon we'll pick up another. Our rewards are personal satisfaction of a job well done, and notes like a postcard received from a proud father, which said, I sent you a boy, you sent me back a man. Yes, we have trained them to the best of our ability, We have developed them into smartly disciplined, physically fit, basically trained Marines, thoroughly indoctrinated in love of corps and country. We have demanded of them the highest standards of personal conduct, morality, and professional skill. The building of a Marine and the making of an American citizen is a very similar process. At Parris Island, we build men, body, mind, and spirit. We make Marines. There's nothing fancy about our training, no tricks, no frills, no great technical machines, just honest hard work by the recruits and their drill instructors. The drill instructors have taught and the recruits have learned the basic tools of their trade: discipline, dedication, physical fitness, proficiency, love of corps and country. We have started the training that will continue throughout the Marine's career, be it for 2 years or 30 years. And these 9 weeks have instilled memories and traditions for him to cherish and uphold for the rest of his life. They are Marines.
This is not a test. This is rock and roll. Time to rock it from the Delta to the DMZ. Is that me, or does that sound like an Elvis Presley movie? Viva Danang. Oh, viva Danang. Danang me. Why don't they get a rope and hang me? Hey, is it a little too early for being that loud? Hey, too late. It's 0600. What's the O stand for? Oh, my God, it's early. Speaking of early, how about that Cro-Magnon, Marty Drywitz? Thank you, Marty, for silky smooth sound. Make me sound like Peggy Lee. This is AFBN, rocking you from the Delta to the DMZ. AFBN, better than AFVD, which means you have to get a quick shot. We're moving on right now. Here's a little riddle for you. What's the difference between the Army and the Cub Scouts? Cub Scouts don't have heavy artillery. Talking out the field today. Hi, what's your name? My name's Bob Fibber. Bob, what do? I'm in artillery. Thank you, Bob. Can we play anything for you? Anything! Just play it loud, okay? Freddie and the Dreamers.
The wrong speed. We've got it on the wrong speed. For those of you who are recovering from a hangover, that's going to sound just right.
Let's pull it right back down again. Let's try a little faster, see if that picks it up a little bit. Let's get up on 7, 8, 10, Those pilots are going right now. I really like the music. I really like the music. Oh, still a bad song. Hey, wait a minute. Let's try something. Let's play this backwards and see if it gets any better. Look, this Niviv, Freddy is a devil. Look, this Niviv, Freddy is a devil. Picture a man going on a journey beyond sight and sound. He's left Crete. He's entered the demilitarized zone. All right. Hey, what is this demilitarized zone? What do they mean, police act? Well, you guys, you take care of yourselves. I won't forget you.
All right, guys, let's take it back to the radio star. We're out of here.
Between 1964 and 1975, the U.S. became involved in a conflict in the Southeast Asian country of Vietnam. Over 2.5 million Americans served in Vietnam, averaging 22 years in age. They were 4 years younger than the troops in World War II. Myth. Most Vietnam veterans were drafted. Truth. 2/3 of those who served in Vietnam were volunteers. Myth. The war was fought largely by the poor and uneducated. Truth. 79% had a high school education or better. It is rumored that the fighting in the South Pacific was more severe during World War II. This is untrue. During World War II, the average soldier saw 40 days of combat in 4 years. During Vietnam, the average soldier saw 240 days of combat in 1 year. The major contributor to the spike in combat days between the two wars was the helicopter. The helicopter provided unprecedented mobility for our troops. Approximately 12,000 helicopters saw action in Vietnam, and without it, it would have taken 3 times as many men to secure the 800-mile border between Cambodia and Laos. Medevac helicopters flew nearly 500,000 missions and airlifted approximately 900,000 patients, with nearly half of those being Americans. With all the action the helicopter saw, it's no wonder that the unmistakable sound of a Huey triggers memories for those who serve.
I can hear a helicopter well before anybody else can. And I have a hearing problem. But I guess it's embedded in my brain because a helicopter always meant help in one nature or another. Either was coming to get our killed or our wounded, resupply, more men for reinforcement.
I was talking with an Army nurse that had been at China Beach, and she said when she got finished in Vietnam and came home, she was destroyed. And she said, even to this day, anytime she hears that thump, thump, thump of a Huey, she breaks out in a cold sweat. Because she said those choppers never brought us good news.
I still have some dreams. I can remember pulling that body with where the brain fell out. I mean, every now and then I'll get some dreams about that or something. I have my moments.
I can understand how it will affect some.
Yeah, you know, it's still back there.
Vietnam veterans are men and women. They were farmers, students, mechanics, steel workers, nurses, and priests when the call came that changed them forever. They had dreams and plans which had to change or wait. Others, your neighbors and friends, are willing to share theirs.
The chances were very, very good that I was going to be drafted. I decided based on the experience of my dad, my uncles, and others that I'd volunteer for 3 years to serve my country.
I was a very restless young man, and I couldn't wait to leave that town, and I just wanted to see the world.
When I was a sophomore in high school, I'd already developed my career plans at that time. I wanted very deeply to be an Indiana state trooper. They informed me that I would not have any trouble being an Indiana state policeman, but they preferred those candidates have the military behind them, and they said that the best Indiana state troopers are former Marines. Well, that's all I needed to hear, and that's why I went to the Marine Corps.
They were drafting, they had the draft going on, and I didn't have a number at that point, but I thought, you know, geez, if I enlist, you can get a 2-year enlistment rather than a 4-year. So I thought, well, I'll go in for 2 years and then I'll decide if I want 2 more years. So that's what I ended up doing.
I just knew that as soon as I got through school, I talked to the recruiter and I went in the Navy. I paid a little bit of attention to what these guys were doing, these corpsmen were doing, and I thought to myself, looks like those guys got a pretty good job. So when I went back to finish up boot camp and went to classification, the classifier's talking about, well, what would you like to do? Where would you like to go, and what do you want to do? And I said, be any possibility of being a hospital corpsman? And I thought the guy was going to come out of his chair and kiss me. He says, oh yes, there's a great opportunity for you to be a hospital corpsman. He says, your scores were great, you'll do well.
I went through, I think it was a first or second gunnery training, so I learned all of the miniguns and rockets and all that. So when I went to Vietnam, first thing I said, I want to fly guns because that's what I came over here for. So anyway, I got into a gun company.
I reported into Vietnam to 5th Special Forces Group headquarters, and I was with about a dozen other guys, and the adjutant was there and briefed us a little bit on going to A camps and various Special Forces assignments, and at the end he said, are any of you interested in volunteering for extremely hazardous duty? And somebody asked a couple of questions about what it was, and they said, well, we really can't tell you until you volunteer. So myself and one of my friends volunteered for it, and we were assigned to SOG, MACV SOG, a Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observation Group. It sounded like a bunch of academians studying, researching old libraries and coming up with data for use by the bigwigs. And in effect, what it was studying and observing the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos and Cambodia. It was classified, highly classified, because at that time, Laos and Cambodia were neutral countries and we were not supposed to be there. And unfortunately, the North Vietnamese were there in huge numbers, and it was decided that it was necessary to conduct a number of activities and operations along the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
When we went to Vietnam, we were all split up. We didn't go as a unit. We all went as replacements to different units. So therefore, the camaraderie that you might have if you were all together going over as a unit, we didn't have that at all.
I remember the very first day that I was in battle. It's a very memorable moment for me. I was a 20-year-old Marine at the time, participating in a full-fledged Marine Corps amphibious assault on a beach just north of Da Nang, Vietnam. The coxswain of this small craft received a radio message, "Take them on in, hit the beach." All of these little craft line up abreast of each other and move forward toward the beach in unison. At about that moment, there's a sergeant that will give the order to lock and load. And at that moment, you stop puking and adrenaline takes over.
Hit it, 4-3 on your feet, move out.
I was only in country about 3 days, 4 days, and they were going to go out on an ambush, a platoon-size ambush, and they'd made me a machine gunner. So I'd never really worked on the M60 machine gun, and they said, "You're the machine gunner." And I remember we got up alongside of a barn. It was a kind of strange because it was like a long rectangular barn, and half of us were at one end of the barn and the other half of us had made the turn and were heading up the length of the barn, and I was about halfway up the length of the barn when I guess a Viet Cong, somebody fired about 2 rounds at us. Well, that we all opened up. I literally held that M60 machine gun like John Wayne, and I was emptying it. Somebody yelled, "They're in the barn," and I started firing into the barn, and we all fired. And with that, after a few minutes, we realized, everybody, that we were kind of shooting towards each other, so we stopped. Unfortunately, the next morning after it was all done, we found out we'd killed 11 water buffalo. We didn't have any Viet Cong, but we had 11 dead water buffalo. We set in that night on a hillside afterwards, and I remember just from all that adrenaline and nerves, I remember I got an upset stomach about an hour afterwards, maybe an hour and a half afterwards, because you had so much acid in your system. But that was my initiation.
And the second night I was there, I knew why, because we got mortars in that night. And that was my introduction, that, hey, this is Vietnam, and there really is a war.
When mortars come in, they're quite devastating. And if you're in the near vicinity of a mortar, you're either going to suffer death or loss of some of your body. It's that simple. Many times I would have to help put some of my comrades on a helicopter that were either wounded or killed. I do recall this one Marine. He had received some shrapnel from a mortar fire directly into his abdomen, and his stomach was wide open. When a helicopter comes down to pick up something, I mean, it's quick. And I told him, I said, hold your hand right here, and what he was doing was holding his intestines in. And that's difficult. I don't want to say any more.
The following night, the VC tried to overrun the Seabees compound, and it was my first real experience there, listening to exchange of fire between 50 caliber machine guns and the mortars, and I thought, well, you know, it's a big city and it looks peaceful during the day, but it's somebody else's world at night.
I had a brother-in-law who was with the Armed Forces Radio Network, if anybody's ever seen Good Morning Vietnam.
Good morning, Vietnam. Welcome back to the Dawn Buster on this Saturday morning.
For about 10 days I was there and running around Saigon with my brother-in-law, and then after that I got back to Phu Bai and they told me I'd been assigned to a combined action platoon. I didn't even know what a CAP unit was. And the combined action platoons were set up near the villages, and they had these areas where the idea was that you had a small number of American forces working with the villagers to try and more of a pacification program. At the same time, you were stationed where the bridges were, and you had a compound that you'd build out there to kind of give security along Highway 1, which was the main road going north and south within South Vietnam.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Let me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. I wanna get by with the fair. Someone to love. I wanna get by with my parole. ground. All the way you hurt me, that devil left me child.
Here's one of our late records we like to play for you now, folks. And it's a beautiful number called What a Wonderful World.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, them grow, they'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful.
Louis B. Armstrong, the great Satchmo.